Folks, thanks so much for tuning in. You're going to hear some wild stuff today. Everything from the price of gold, what's happening there, to what's happening with Taylor Swift. And is the oil price going to continue to drop? Well, on the US side, amazing thing has happened with President Trump is actually being a free marketer and not wanting usually to see government involvement in the marketplace has warned gas stations across the US, especially as people get ready for July the 4th and all their summer traveling, that they better not be gouging and they better keep the prices, as even said, at around 250. That's 250 a gallon. That's US. Saying that the situation is largely cleared up, that oil and gas is moving through the straits out there in the Middle East, and they better watch out. So, kind of a new approach there from government in the US, giving a warning to gas stations everywhere. The giant shipping company, and you'll see this when you're sitting at a railway track or railway crossing, you see all those cars going across the rail cars called Hapag-Lloyd. Hapag-Lloyd, it's a hyphenated word, one of the biggest shipping companies in the world. And they're saying the new normal is actually going to be questionable markets. They say that their prediction is the Iranian government is not going to toe the line. There's going to be continued fights, and watch for that ongoing uncertainty that things are definitely not settled in the Middle East. Well, markets themselves have shown that they're holding steady and even moving up slightly. Remember how we've talked about the fact that when a market analysis is done, the experts look at what's happening across any given day in the stock markets. So you can have hundreds of smaller stocks. It could be grocery stocks. It could be, agriculture related stocks. It could be selling of sporting goods, whatever. But they always take the average. And so if the main very high trading stocks, high volume stocks, are in the AI and tech market as they are, then that pulls the average up overall. So you might be looking at household goods you're buying and saying, well, the stocks or investments in these particular areas aren't doing anything to alleviate price, but the overall average of market activity is what is taken into effect. And the overall market activity, again, with all investments related to AI, investments related to semiconductors, which go into of course, the building of all these AI products, those continue to go up as this giant race. It's just an ongoing race. It'll probably never end between China and, let's call it, the European U.S. Combination. Is investments just continue to pour in. So that's going to be a factor. You're going to see it across the markets today. The markets are actually showing not badly, even though the conflict in Iran continues to be concerning. Another thing that people are watching, um, you're going to hear in the news today and tomorrow, the major banks and federal reserves from various countries are meeting in Sintra, Portugal today, and they're going to be deciding on what they're going to do with the overall rate or bank rate, or that's the cost of money, actually the rate that you're going to pay on your mortgage will be affected by that. The rate that you'll pay if you're buying a car and you're financing it. That is being looked at right away today and tomorrow. So if in fact they do not lower the borrowing rate, if they do not lower these rates, then you're going to see that's a signal they're worried about ongoing inflation. Well, in the markets in Japan, in South Korea, in Taiwan, again, they're being strengthened by the demand for semiconductors and AI technology. But keep an eye on Japan, because even though the U.S. dollar is up, so showing the strength of the economic position of the U.S., the yen, which is the denomination in Japan, is at a 40-year low because the debt is so high, built up over the last couple of decades in Japan. The debt is so high, the interest rate required to support the debt is high. That means taxpayers in Japan can't be expecting a tax reduction anytime soon. That depresses the market generally. And so, interesting to see if the government of Japan is going to step in and do something with their denominational currency, the yen, being so low. Again, it's just a warning to other countries. You can't just keep on piling up debt. Remember, folks, what is the single greatest reason for the rise in inflation and therefore the cost of goods to you? Single greatest reason is governments spending with borrowed money. Governments increasing their spending, doing it with borrowed money. Every time a politician, regardless of the party, makes an announcement about new spending, you might not want to applaud. It just means it's going to be tougher for you to buy groceries. So regardless, so we see the Standard and Poor's average in the U.S. The market is up slightly. In Canadian, the market is up slightly because there are so many natural resources that are in demand now around the world, especially in the AI race. And Canada has many of these resources, everything from oil and liquefied natural gas to all some of the rare metals. So Canada market up slightly. We'll see what happens. Now, if you take a look at gold, gold is sort of holding steady. It's not really increasing in price. The price today of gold for an ounce is $4,040, kind of stabilized. That means people aren't panicking. Remember, whenever people start to panic and worry about investments, the big investors, they will buy gold because it tends to be one of those things down through the centuries that still send a sign of if you want to stabilize and protect your investments, buy gold. And it's not really launching up. So people are saying that that shows overall still a fairly good level of confidence in the marketplace itself in various stocks. But the Canadian dollar itself is at 70.5 cents, 70.5 cents compared to the US dollar. The reason that is not getting as much publicity as it has in years and decades in the past. Remember, in Canada, a federal government would be judged by the strength of the dollar against the US because it makes it harder for Canadians who are traveling to the US to be able to spend because the Canadian dollar is worth so much less. But now, with this feeling, unfortunately, that's been generated by the federal government, there's kind of an anti American sentiment, and travel to the US is down somewhat among Canadians. So Canadians aren't complaining as much. They don't realize their dollar is losing purchasing power because of the ongoing spending of the federal Liberal government. So keep an eye on the dollar. If it drops below 70 cents in terms of opposed to the US, that could start to actually get people upset. There, we talk about influencers on the media, but mainly influencers in social media. But there are other huge influencers that are out there in terms of affecting public opinion. So you've heard a lot in Canada and the U.S. about George Soros. He multi-billionaire, but supporting strong left-wing causes, and he's a major supporter of the appointment of, for instance, judges that would be seen as being left-leaning, major supporter of campaigns that would be against any government that is seen to be conservative. Well, there's an influencer who's probably even stronger on the left than George Soros, and that's Neville Roy Singham. We've talked a bit about him here in the past. The reason I'm talking about it today is it looks like there are some courts now in the US that are actually going to be, there's going to be a grand jury investigation into the influencer known as Neville Roy Singham. Now, you might uh, and he's putting his billions of dollars into supporting leftist causes. One of the causes that's really got people interested, the development of these data centers, which are necessary if you're going to see ongoing growth in AI, and to see if the Western world, Canada, the U.S., and Europe is going to be able to keep up with China in terms of their rapidly increasing with capability of AI. That would mean they would be developing weapons and defense systems also that would be stronger than Canada, US, or stronger than Europe. That would be a very dangerous situation, of course. But a grand jury in South New York has got enough information that they believe that Singham and his network are actually influencing, pouring millions of dollars into some of the protest groups that you see out on the streets, some of the movements to ban AI in different states. And this is really on the increase. Apparently, the number of initiatives that his network supports. For instance, there's a large group called the Party for Socialism and Liberation. They operate in the US, they have influence in Canada. It takes a lot of money to organize protests, especially if it's violent protests, because you've got to protect the protesters, you've got to tell them you're going to be there. So a lot of money goes into these networks, but they've seen that they've taken a look at 19 situations where in 14 states, the legislators have actually developed legislation against the development of data centers. Now, there are concerns anytime any major construction is going on. There are issues related to water and to energy. These are not insurmountable, but 10 moratoriums have now in various states come up on the building of any kind of data centers. If that spreads, of course, across the U.S. or into Europe, that means China will have a free, wide open runway in developing more AI and leaping ahead of the rest of the world. You may have heard of Jodie Evans. She is married to Neville Roy Singham. You may have heard of Code Pink. That's a network that they both plow hundreds of millions of dollars into. Another one is called Tricontinental, and they are the ones who usually launch the attacks against Google, against Amazon, against Meta, and get these various groups. He made his billions. He had an organization, a company called ThoughtWorks, a very successful IT consulting company, and he sold it in 2017 for 785 million US. That's $1 billion. He has accumulated much under wealth, other areas of wealth, and um, Singham, right after he did a huge sale, he relocated to Shanghai. And the New York Times has some interesting articles. New York Times is not exactly a strong conservative right wing newspaper, but they've really done a lot of investigation into the amount of influence he has. So we'll see what happens. This is the first time now that there will be court cases against uh, against this guy and his huge network and influence and Code Pink and Jodie Evans, and we'll see what it all comes to. Keep an eye on that. Talking about Pink, in Seattle, are huge protests now on both sides relative to the Pride Month and Pride Parade, where all kinds of videos out now, high degrees of nudity, mainly men running around and jumping into the water fountains. And these pride parades get large crowds, and they can see now in the videos that are gone or viral, sorry, that parents are covering their children's eyes as men are completely nude and gyrating in front of kids at the parade and along the parade route, and that's getting a lot of controversy. We'll see if it goes anywhere. Another area of controversy as you get the increasing divide in the U.S. to a degree in Canada, but more in the U.S. In terms of do you love your country? Do you love the U.S.? In San Marcos, California, we'll see if this becomes a trend. It's a community that has its own association and bylaws, as many communities do, and they have banned the flying of the U.S. flag, especially on July 4th. They say it's too controversial. So we'll see if that trend continues. An interesting one for sure. Metro News, if you check out on the one further on that site, they're talking about this. There's been a lot of news about sort of Gen Z and being Gen Z stuck on social media, but adults hugely stuck on the dopamine effects of anticipation scrolling, and so it's become quite a thing where scrolling and following information or shows like on houses that you can never afford. You can actually pretend you're buying houses. You can pretend you're buying food, high quality food, high quality cars, and clothes. And it's this new trend. It's called fake buying, and the tracking on that it releases dopamine, which produces, interesting enough, according to the psychologists who are looking at, it produces anticipation, and it's kind of like a drug. It's kind of there's a spike in our system. We get that, and so the dopamine effect of anticipation buying. I don't know how big of influence or trend this is going to be, but let's watch it. Let's see if that continues. Talk about anticipation. Is Taylor Swift going to get married this week or not? The rumors continue. Madison Square Gardens has been booked by a private entity. Apparently, nobody knows who it is, but they're saying it's Taylor Swift for July 3rd. Hundreds of hotel rooms in the area are booked and by celebrities and sports people. So it's seeming like Madison Square Gardens is where the betters are saying the wedding is going to take place. People are asking, am I making a prediction? I'm not going to make a prediction on the wedding itself happening, though it certainly looks like it may. But if they get married, absolutely, you will see over the next year or two an increase in the percentage of people who are getting married rather than cohabitating. And who knows if they start having kids, even one child, if the first they do, if the two get married, then if they have a child, you will see an increase in the birth rate. That is the effect, the social media effect. We just have to sort of face it of some of these megastars. Well, the Supreme Court is being looked at all the time in terms of judgments that they're having, and the Democrats are saying, if they get elected, they'll expand the number of people on the Supreme Court so they can make it more left-leaning. But Justice Clarence Thomas, he was appointed way back in '91, was seen in Washington in the Capitol building, and nobody knew who he was visiting. The rumors is it's crazy how these rumors start, but that he's visiting, came to see the White House doctor, and if that is true, then you'll start to hear the rumors about him. Is he ill? And that'll just whip up the rumors of, are there going to be some appointments, some new appointments to the Supreme Court? He's 78 years old, not very old in my books, but we'll see where that goes. In British Columbia, as I've reported and as I was working on and helping out in the Conservative, this is the British Columbia Conservative Party, provincial party, electing a new leader, being Carrie Lynn Finley, and she won it was very close. The second contender there, Caroline Elliott, being less than 1% behind. But she's done a shuffle of the people in her group in the Conservative Party in BC that would possibly have cabinet positions if that party gets elected. Some people are calling it a shuffle. Some people are calling it a purge. She is, I think, quite rightly saying it's a big tent, but we'll see how it goes. You're going to get the accusations. It's going to happen for sure. They're going to say it's too far right or too supportive of families. And the question is going to be, will conservatives be able to stick together and put up a formidable group that will win the election in BC eventually? The Socialists, the NDP are down in the polls. Will conservatives in BC be able to keep their act together? We don't know. Well, all of the discussion about heat waves, and there's no question there's been a series, and there is a series of heat waves, not just in Europe, but also in Canada. And so what you're seeing now, first ever in Canada, of course, we have had for decades regulations about when you're building developers, or even if you're building a home, you have to build in certain capacity to resist the cold. And there's been discussion because of the heat wave, should there be also forced regulations about keeping, resisting extreme heat. The city of New Westminster has now become the first city in Canada to have heat bylaws, where they're saying at least one room of a house has to be maintained or maintainable at a certain degree. This is very interesting. Of course, costs into building and building regulations are going to rocket through the roof on this. It's going to create a different type of heat of its own. So again, our politicians overreacting just to get votes by forcing now heat bylaws in construction. We'll have to wait and, in fact, see where that goes. Well, on July the 2nd, right after July 1st, is Canada Day, of course, in Canada. And Alberta, the province of Alberta, will be announcing its project. The federal government has said, if you've got a national project or a project that's going to affect the nation, we'll try and fast track it for you. And so the premier there will be announcing a proposed pipeline. My prediction is, first of all, that pipeline is needed. Canada has the resources to be able to help the entire world reduce dirty emissions with our better, more refined products. But guaranteed there is going to be huge protest, and we'll see if these very needed pipelines are going to be able to move ahead or not. That's going to be a high degree of interest. There's a group, people are kind of laughing in Ottawa right now and in Ontario and actually in Quebec a bit, because there's been this major push to have um, uh, let's call it improved public spaces, improved public spaces, beautifying public spaces. And in Ottawa, and also to a degree in Quebec, the French language, um, let's say, initiative in this regard is it was meant to be called placette, which is place in French, and public, which is public. And so giant posters are put up all around the city in Ottawa and in other places in French, of course, to meet the requirements for the French language. And instead, and it's just stunning to me how these things could have been printed, they could have been put online, they could have huge billboards put up, and it says actually placette Pubic, Pubic. They forgot the L. They spelt it wrong. So it's not public. Sorry, you can block your ears if you want. It's pubic. So it comes out as promoting pubic places. All the billboards, all the advertising, millions of dollars had to come down. How could people miss that? Is unbelievable to know. There's a poll out as the question about Alberta is coming up, and do people want to separate? There'll be a vote related to that question, not separation itself happening, but pursuing the question. That's coming up October 19th. The Leger poll across the country just asked the question in all provinces saying, do you put your province ahead of the country? And or do you put country first and then your province? And in Alberta, according to the Leger poll just out, Albertans have the lowest amount of people who will put the province ahead of the country. In fact, most are saying, no, we put country first and then province. Is that going to deter the separatist movement in Alberta? Time will tell. We don't know. And the company swissinfo.com, has done a study, and they do financial studies. They're very well known. They say the number of billionaires has increased this year. It's not just Elon, 13%. So just in case you're wondering, there are, according to Swiss Info, there are 3,302 billionaires in the world now. They also say the number of millionaires has increased. So, of course, the debate will be, is that good or not? More people have more money. More people are wealthier right across the board. And we'll see who gets mad at that. Well, if you're into fashion and those eyeglasses that are called smart glasses, which track everything you do and speak to you as you're walking around, and they can film people as you're talking to them. Meta has come out with a new glasses called Starfire. They're $399 US, and they're round. They are sort of cat eye glasses, as they're called, very stylish. Kylie Jenner is the big promoter of these glasses, and she will be your AI assistant. It will be her voice in your ears when you're wearing those glasses and you're walking around. There you go. We'll see how that goes. A search. Close with this thought. All the AI facilities related to news, they do searches to see what's common among reporting and among different groups, and searching faith-based groups and faith-based publications. They say the strongest theme of this last month has been from the book of Matthew in the New Testament, and it's a story about Jesus calming the storm, and that has been the most sought after um, scriptural or biblical theme for the month. If you're feeling the storms, you're not alone. If you're looking for the answer, you're not alone either. Thanks for tuning in, folks. See you tomorrow.